happened to you? You make a sweater and you like it, but as you wear it for some time, you wish the sleeves were a bit or a lot longer. Well, it happened to me and my favorite Facile sweater. That sweater was designed for late spring, summer, early fall season, and that's why I made the sleeves 3/4 long. And I was happily wearing that sweater through the early fall and into the winter. But then I noticed that I was pulling the sleeves down as if I wished they were longer. And then I thought maybe it's time to make them longer. And in this tutorial, I'll show you how to do it. Of course, if your sweater is worked top down in the round, then lengthening the sleeves is quite easy. Just undo the bind-off edge, which would be right here, and then you pick up stitches and work for as many rows as you need to lengthen the sleeve. But my sweater is worked from the bottom up in pieces, and it's also seamed. See, there is the seam right here. So that complicates things a lot. And this technique is meant for sweaters that are worked from the bottom and up, whether seamed or not seamed. Here's what we need for the project. We need the sweater, and this is the sleeve of my sweater. We need the yarn, and you can use the same yarn you used to make the sweater, or you can use the same yarn in a different color, or you can use a completely different yarn to spice up the sweater a bit. We'll also need 2 sets of needles. These could be either circular needles or double-pointed needles. The bigger needles should be in the same size that you use to make the sweater. In my case, it's 5mm US size 8. And the smaller needles should be 2 sizes smaller than the bigger needles. So I'm using 4mm US size 6. I'm putting the bigger needles aside for now, and we'll start with smaller needles. We would need to pick up stitches, and we are not gonna undo any seams, and we're gonna minimize the amount of effort we're gonna spend on lengthening the sleeves. So if you have a seam like I do, then start from the seam. If you don't have a seam, then just find the spot that is equivalent, let's say, to the seam, so it's gonna be on the inner side of the sweater. Take one of the smaller needles and then find the stitch that is the first one at the left side of the seam. So for me, it's going to be this one. And then insert the needle from front to back under the bottom strand of this stitch, like this. Depending on the cast on you used, this bottom will look slightly differently. So just go by the bottom strand. So go under that strand, then take the yarn, fold it, leaving a small tail. We're gonna weave it in later on, and place that fold on the needle. And then carefully pull this wrap, this fold, pull it through the fabric, creating a stitch, basically picking up a stitch, just like this. And then we have 2 options. You can leave the tail, just put it aside and ignore it for now. That would make the first stitch really big, which is easy to fix later on. But if that annoys you, then you can just hold the tail. Where is it? You can hold, oh, right here. You can hold the tail and the yarn together when you work the next stitch. So it's up to you. You can just go in here and use both the tail and the yarn to make the next stitch like this. I won't do that because I don't want any extra bulk over here, so I will simply put the tail aside. Like I said, it's totally up to you. And then, as you already noticed, you just go into the next stitch. Same way, you insert the needle under the bottom strand like this, then wrap the needle with the yarn, and you can do it with the yarn in your left hand or your right hand, doesn't really matter. The idea is the same. You simply wrap the needle with the yarn and pull that, oops, I lost it, and pull that wrap through the stitch, just like this. And then you keep going, stitch after stitch, until you have the same number of stitches on the needles as the number you cast on to make the sleeve. So we are matching stitch for stitch. And because we haven't undone the seam over here, it won't be comfortable. We can't work flat, even if we decide to make it seamed. we can't work flat. We need the setup that will allow us to work comfortably as if in the round, or in the round if you decide to make it in the round. So if you're using double pointed needles, that as you pick up stitches, divide them evenly between 3 or 4 needles, depending on how many needles you're using. If you're using the longer circular needle like I do, I'm going to use the magic loop technique. So I'm going to divide the stitches in half, and keep half of the stitches on the cable of the needle, and then half of the stitches on the needle itself. So as you pick up stitches, just be mindful of the way how you're gonna work these stitches, and keep picking up until, like I said, you have the same number of stitches as the number of stitches you cast on to make the sleeve. And 28 over here. So here's what happened. I need to pick up 58 stitches. So I split them into 2 groups of 29 stitches each. So I have 29 stitches over here, and I need 29 stitches over here. But I picked up all strands, and I'm 1 stitch short. I have just 28. So what am I gonna do? And why it happens? Because one of the stitches is probably hidden over here in the seam. But I do need 29 stitches, so I'm gonna pick up 1 more stitch from the same spot, but I will go not under the bottom strand, but I will go inside the stitch instead, like this. So, but because I do need those 29 stitches over here, so I have 58 stitches altogether. So all stitches are picked up, and now we are ready to work on the add-on to the sleeve. This type of adding the a part of the sleeve is not invisible, and you can tell over here that if your fabric is worked in stockinette stitch and then you want the add-on to be in the stockinette stitch as well, you will see a line here. It will show. So as you probably can see over here, it shows a bit. It's not ugly or anything. It just shows a bit. So it's better to add the piece, the add-on. It's better to make it in a different stitch pattern, so you can kind of hide that transition. Or you can hide it by making a garter ridge. And because my stitch pattern has garter ridges over here, so I'm gonna just use that and start with the garter ridge, and then continue in the pattern that is consistent with the pattern of my sweater. And now we have 2 options. We can continue to work in the round, or we can work back and forth. And I'm gonna go with the second option. I'm gonna go back and forth, even though I have it all set up for working in the round, but I want the sleeve to be consistent. I have the seam over here, and I want it to go on and to look as if there is nothing different with the add-on. So I'm gonna turn the work, and then I'm gonna knit all stitches. And to do that, I will use a bigger needle. So we needed the smaller needle to pick up stitches, because it's easier usually to pick up stitches with a smaller needle. But it's done its job, and now it's time to change it to the bigger needle. So I'm gonna turn the work and take the bigger needle in my right hand, and then knit all stitches in this round to create a garter ridge to hide the transition. And then I'm gonna work on and on and on the add-on, and when I'm done, I'll have it like this. I finished the second sleeve already, and you can see that transition that I was talking about. It's right here. It doesn't show much because it's between 2 garter ridges, and it actually looks quite lovely to me. So it looks a lot like part of the design, but if your setup, the stitch pattern setup, is slightly different, it's better to hide that transition by using a different stitch pattern on the add-on. And the easiest fix would be to use ribbing. Once you're happy with the length of the sleeve, and to check that, you can simply try on the sweater and see whether it's long enough. Once you're happy with the length, simply bind off stitches, and if you're working in the round, that's it. You just hide the tail and you're done. Or if you make a seamed version like I do, then make the seam and hide the tails afterwards. Then block the sleeve to make sure that this fabric looks the same as the sleeve itself, and you're good to go. That wasn't that hard, was it? In just a few hours, you can revive the sweater, and then you will enjoy wearing it even more because the sleeves are as long as you like them to be. By the way, you can use the same strategy to lengthen the sweater itself. To read this tutorial as a set of step-by-step photo instructions, follow the link in the description. To download it as a PDF, join the club or our community on Patreon. Thank you for watching this video and have a wonderful week. I'll see you in the next tutorial.